This is the Retirement Solution Podcast with financial advisor John Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital.
Glad to have you here with us on the Retirement Solution with financial advisor John Hicks. I'm Heather Branch, here asking John for his insight on the many complicated things that are involved in the retirement planning process. You are smart. You've worked hard to earn and save. It can be annoying John, how intimidating it can be. Listen, I am a college-educated woman. I have a successful marriage and career. I am annoyed by all this lack of financial knowledge that I have.
You know, I was reading a report the other day, and it said literally 53%, and who knows where the statistic comes from.
Yeah, right.
53% of information out there about financial topics are wrong, misleading, erroneous, or just flat out false. And I was like, how is that even possible? But I cannot tell you how many times I just go through articles and I'm like, well, that is correct in this situation.
Yeah.
But it is completely not only not correct, it would be a terrible idea to do in this situation or this situation or this situation. Mm-hmm. And what are those situations? Someone's married. Someone's not. Mm-hmm. Someone has a large age gap between spouses. Mm-hmm. Someone has a health issue. Someone has a tax situation. Someone is selling a major piece of real estate that's not their primary focus. Someone wants to relocate to Florida. So it
goes on and on and on.
Amazing.
It's endless.
And by the way, that's why that little disclaimer exists on almost every financial thing.
Yeah.
That please don't construe this as specific, legal or investment advice. You must talk to your tax or legal or financial person because there is no way that any real information that's given blanket format should probably apply to us if we've done a good job savings and we have a few bucks behind our name, right?
Right.
I mean, there are some blanket things that I can say to anyone who has no money in their pocket, which is, hey, go make some money, put it in your pocket, and then invest it in anything that you are comfortable with, even a bank CD. I don't care. Just save money. I can say that to anyone. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of stuff that once we get to a level of what I'm going to call complication, which is we got 6 figures plus, we got 7 figures. We may have a business that's worth 8 figures, or some people I've talked to recently, 9-figure businesses. By the way, that's 100 million or more. And they're just like, dude, I have no idea how lucky I got to get here. I have great CPAs, great attorneys, great tax people I've talked to, but everyone now in this depth of water is uncomfortable. Yeah. We need to figure out at this point, what do we do to shore up the ship, make sure things are good, and make sure that we're going to have smoother waters ahead of us. I'm like, I got it. That's what we do.
And I think also what you were saying, the idea about 53% of information that we consume may be incorrect.
Or at least for us.
We talk about it, but that's the thing. We talk about it all the time. Like, you've got to get a plan that's customized to you, because what's right for said person over here is completely incorrect for said person over there. And you're somewhere in the middle. And we got to figure out what's going to work for you, whether you've got $1 million, $10 million, $100 million. It's all about you and what you want to get.
If you think about most of the information we get, it's not intentional that it's bad to us.
Sure.
It's just not good advice. For instance, if we have kids or grandkids that back in the day, we're a little past this moment, but not that far past, where, hey, you should be in Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. Hey, some of those kids made a fortune on that. I just abstained. I stayed out. I didn't understand it. And what's happened over the last 4 or 5 years, it's kind of done not much of anything. Right. That doesn't make it good or that doesn't make it bad. But the whole point is there's nothing wrong with that younger generation who has lots of time to figure it out. They have a lot of opportunities, even if they lose it all, to make more back and do things. But that type of commentary, even though it's not intentioned to be bad, it can be detrimental if we just take the wrong advice at the wrong time of our lives. So that's just what we want to protect ourselves from, right?
That's right.
Just don't act on the really bad advice.
Right. And get advice that's customized to you. RetirementSolutionRadio.com. If you want to start that conversation with John and his team at J. Hagan Capital, let's get to work. Let's talk about current climates and things we're hearing about current circumstances, because just a few weeks ago, there was plenty of talk about interest rate cuts and a soft landing for the economy. But then we saw some rocky days in the market, John, some downs on Wall Street. Now the R word, recession, has started to rear its head in certain conversations. Economist Nancy Lazar tells Fox Business that, in fact, we need one. Here's what she said.
We would say we are now just moving into the high risk period of a recession. It on average takes 10 quarters after a Fed tightening cycle to dip the economy into a recession. And so indeed, we think it could be painful as we move into the fourth quarter is when our best guess of when a recession starts. We think we need a recession in inflation, or we risk potentially going back into something like the early 1970s.
She is speaking very she speaks like an economist. And she's talking about how we need a recession and let's avoid the 70s, all those things. But to the every man and woman, particularly the retired man and woman, it's like all that stuff she just said is scary.
And that's the whole issue, right? And so I would say very honestly, the reason I not only agree with Nancy, because from a financial or mathematical framework, it's correct. Things can't only go up, or you get into such a bubblicious situation where when it pops, it is a nasty mess. So what has happened in 2022, we had a little bit of a pullback. There was a lot of reasons for that. Some of them right, some of them wrong, but mostly just because the Fed increased interest rates. The majority of the issues, okay? Now we're in a different situation. Now, so far, 2023 was kind of a big year. 2024, at least at this point, we've seen a lot of volatility, but we're positive double digits on the year still so far. And we're looking at this and just saying, hold on, where do we go from here? Because now we're in a situation where whether the Fed raises or reduces rates or not, how much more can some of these companies grow? I think we talked last week about the fact that just in the last month, NVIDIA has lost as much on paper as is the total value of Walmart plus Tesla combined. They've lost more in market share, market value, as if you had everything that Walmart owned and everything that Tesla owned combined. Guys, if you think about it, does that sound a little bubblicious to you? Because they're still a hugely valued company. They lost as much as Walmart's worth. So those types of things that now finally, eyes wide open, people are starting to pay attention to and say, oh, wow. So the market doesn't have to go down, but it may not go up a lot from here, or at least a lot of companies may not. Well, right. Well, by the way, that's a recession. All a recession really is when you do not have an increase in gross domestic product, which GDP, gross domestic product, is kind of like when you just say that everything that we all do as Americans, whether we're making products or we're doing services or we're putting paint on a wall or we're pulling off wallpaper, whatever it is, whatever we do as a country, that creates our gross domestic product, everything we produce as a country. And if it's not growing for 2 quarters in a row, then that's a slowdown. It pulls back. Now, there is nothing in the world wrong with not growing from time to time. But what happens? When it happens fast and the market acts like a really ticked off teenager. Hyper emotional, hyper volatile, spazzing all over the place and getting a lot of emotion in the way. And unfortunately, because the markets do this, people overreact and they end up losing lots of money. But I have 2 statistics that I wanted to pull up. Number one, not only are recessions good and healthy, I also agree with Nancy, we need one. It doesn't mean that everything you invest in can go down, right? If you think about it right now, money markets are paying 4.5% to 5.5%. That's pretty dang good. Yeah. You can lock in fixed income investments paying 5, 6. I saw one the other day for 6.5% for a 5-year guaranteed hold. That's pretty stinking good. Those things exist, which means that if you have some of those things in your portfolio, you'll have no losses on that part of your portfolio. Okay. And there are some things that actually go one step further and they say, hey, not only am I going to protect you, insure you on the downside, either FDIC, if it's a market-linked CD, or they can just use an entire insurance company, like take your pick, some huge one that you see on every skyscraper in downtowns, and they can insure your money where you can't lose anything. But if the market does end up doing good, you might be able to get a good percentage of that, maybe even up to 15% on the upside. Those exist. So the point is that we shouldn't be freaked out about a recession. We just need to understand, how's your money positioned? How much of it's protected? Right. How much of it could really go down? And if it does go down, do you have enough assets available to stay the course until it corrects? Because the other statistic I wanted to put out right here, looking at it right now, the average recession over the past 80 years, the average has lasted between 7 and 18 months. Okay. Think about it. As long as your income is in a pretty good place, you feel pretty confident that you can sustain that income. And if you have a job and you don't lose your job, there probably isn't any real issues. Or if you're 10 years away from retirement, probably not a problem.
Right.
If you're within 3 to 5 years of retirement, this is where you want to take some really careful consideration here.
Okay.
Do you have enough in your portfolio to generate income for, let's say, the next almost 2 years without having to erode your principal?
Okay.
If you do, you might be in okay shape. But there's a lot of us, and I've seen a lot of these portfolios out there, they're not in the right position, because if the market goes down 20, 25, 30, 40%, you might go down 20, 25, 30, 40%. And it's no fault. And do I feel that in the long run it'll recover? I do. But if you make knee-jerk reactions, or you're so uncomfortable, or all of a sudden your $1 million 401k balance looks more like a $500,000 401k balance, people just make really unfortunate decisions.
Right.
Now, that's when people like me, we swoop in and buy it at 50 cents on the dollar. I can't help the fact that I know the systems work that way, because whether or not the market goes up or down, I'm just trying to find a buying opportunity when it makes sense for as much risk as I'm willing to take.
But you're trying to find the buying opportunity for the people that you work for. Like, always. That's the thing. It's like, you're here to help.
And think about it.
Yeah.
When things are good, you know, the sky is bright and blue. It's not too hot. It's gorgeous outside. Might we take the convertible out? Well, sure. Let's drive the convertible. It's a gorgeous day. Everything's fine. You want to make sure the top works in case you get a flash flood all of a sudden. Yeah. But that's when you take the car out. You're going to take a little bit more risk. Why? Because everything appears fine.
Yeah.
Now, if all of a sudden you're looking outside and there's dark, stormy clouds and the thunderstorms everywhere and lightning and there's flash flood warnings, are you going to take the convertible out? Probably not. And on top of that, are you going to take the car out at all if you don't have to? No. Well, that's the way our investment systems work. When things are good, we add a little bit more risk, just a little bit, depending on the risk tolerance of that client. But when things are weird, like they've been getting for a while, our systems purposefully just pump the brakes a little bit and say, hey, you know, we still got to get on the road. We still got to get somewhere. We're not going to take the convertible. We're not going to take the car that maybe needs a tune-up. We're going to go ahead and we're going to play this cautionary. And by doing that, we can make certain that we're taking advantage of the opportunities as they present themselves. But when you kind of look at it, should we have a recession? Technically, we should. How are we going to react? What is our emotion going to do to the value of our portfolio and our ability to retire? What I suggest is, even if you've always done it on your own, even if you have the best quality portfolio at Vanguard or Schwab or Fidelity or whatever, this is where I always feel that if you're thinking about retiring in the next 3 to 5 years, this is where you need a second opinion. Simply because this is not my first retirement. My firm has gone through thousands and thousands and thousands of retirements with folks where we're looking not only at what's happening now and what happened in the last 6 months, but what have we seen over the last 25 years? What do we feel may happen next, and how do we protect that client from what they can't see because it may be their first time to retire, so that we don't make poor mistakes. Second opinions when the recession could even be on the horizon are of paramount importance, Heather.
Let's get to work, reviewing what you work so hard to earn and save, taking a second opinion on your retirement savings and investments. John and his team at J. Hagan Capital ready to do that work with and for you. RetirementSolutionRadio.com is where to go to start that conversation. We also have links posted in the show notes. Or again, visit us anytime, RetirementSolutionRadio.com.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Solution Podcast with John Hicks. Begin the conversation about your savings plan with John and the team at J. Hagan Capital by visiting RetirementSolutionRadio.com. Be sure to listen to John's radio show, The Retirement Solution, Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 9 a.m. on News Radio 840 WHAS.
J. Hagan Capital Inc. is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if J. Hagan Capital Inc. is licensed in your state, please call 502-690-5635. J. Hagan Capital Inc. is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency. It does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through J. Hagan Capital. National license number 1882794.